you for joining us this summer evening to discuss an issue that's very important to all of us and learn more about the problem with plastics and policy solutions to look towards in our future. But before we dive into it, I want to do some little introductions and level setting, as well as some housekeeping for everybody. My name is Ed Potasnik, and I'm the Executive Director of New Jersey LCV. We're the political voice for the environment here in New Jersey, and we're a nonprofit organization that guides and educates to protect families and communities and safeguard our resources now and for future generations. We provide the public, policymakers, and opinion leaders with sound, objective information that encourages strong, equitable, and environmental solutions. And we work with elected officials to make sure they have accurate information. Some Zoom tips. Today, this webinar is being recorded, and it'll be available on YouTube following the webinar. Please stay muted to be respectful to the speakers and the audience. If you have comments or questions for the speakers, please drop them in the chat when they come up. That's going to be the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom box there. And we're going to ask your questions at the end of the webinar. These events, webinars like this, can't happen without the promotion and help of our partners. So I want to take some time to thank us co-sponsors of tonight's program: the New Brunswick Area NAACP branch, the Newark Green Team, New Jersey Highlands Coalition, the Pinelands Preservation Alliance, Save Coastal Wildlife, and the South Jersey Land and Water Trust. I also want to thank all the staff that helped make today possible, and of course, the co-sponsors to make the event a reality. So why are we here? We're gonna talk a little bit about plastics, something that, over the course of, our lifetimes have become ubiquitous materials, literally at every corner of our planet, and tell a little bit of the story about the industry and, what's been happening in our state. Single-use plastics are everywhere. They're on the market because right now this is big business and big money, with an estimated over 400 million tons a year of global plastic production currently. That's about 40% of the plastic that's being used is single-use plastics. So we must continue fighting to reduce unnecessary production and consumption. And that is statistics from the New York Times. New Jersey made huge strides in 2022 when we implemented the Plastic Pollution Reduction Act, phasing out single-use plastic bags, straws, styrofoam, and so much more from our supermarkets and restaurants. And we have more to do. We can and must go further to address the problem of plastics, from our sheer dependence to microplastics that are impacting our waterways and our bodies. That's why we're delighted tonight to have two speakers to share with us and speak more to the issues that relate to plastics, both from an environmental and environmental justice lenses, and what some of the solutions could be to help us to address the challenges of plastics and plastic pollution. So our first speaker is Nandini Checko. She's known as Dini to all of us, the Plastic Pollution Project Director for the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, or ANJEC. She's been with ANJEC for 13 years, helping to advance its mission of supporting the local environment and empowering community volunteers. She's also a member of the State Plastics Advisory Board and a board member of the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership. Outside of work, you'll find her picking up litter while walking and listening to podcasts. She holds a master's degree from Columbia University in organizational development and a Bachelor of Science degree from the School of Business at Rutgers University. So I want to welcome you, Dini, and give it to you. They give you the floor so we can learn more about the great work you've been doing. And again, if you have questions at any time, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Thanks so much. Dini.
Thank you so much, Ed, for that beautiful introduction. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. As Ed shared, yes, I work for ANJEC. We are a statewide nonprofit. We've been around for 56 years. And I'm sure some of our members are on this call, so thank you so much. So along with training, educational education and we work very closely with our members and our partners, such as LCV and New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance, and so many more to support strong environmental policy. So the reason we're here, Ed kicked us off. He talked about the problems with plastic. And plastics are definitely a problem. There's so many toxins in plastics that is linked to our human health, our wildlife health, climate change, and environmental justice. Brooke, a little later, is going to be talking about the environmental justice component. And I want to talk about the toxins in plastics. So there are over 10,000 chemicals, and at least a quarter of them have been deemed a substance of potential concerns. They are endocrine disruptors, neurotoxins, PFAS, and other forever chemicals, and they're very dangerous. And some of the diseases that and illnesses that we know that's caused by these toxins are cancer and diabetes and reproductive disorders. And these are just some of the examples. As far as the connection of plastic to climate change, emissions from plastic generation will exceed that of coal-fired power plants by 2030. So there's a lot going on here, and that's why it's definitely a problem. And we've seen that just in the last 7 months, which is bonkers. This is just from January 2024. The news headlines discussing the concerns with plastics are all over. Right? Microplastics found in every human placenta tested in studies. Scientists find that about sorry, I'm just going to move my screen here. I don't need to look at myself. Scientists find about 250,000 invisible microplastic particles in a liter of bottled water. And then on top of that, a new study linked that microplastics are linked to heart attacks and strokes. So that's just in the recent news headlines. And what else? And this just came out in January. Vinyl chloride is a building block for a polyvinyl chloride plastic. And vinyl chloride, we've known for a long time, is a carcinogen and a liver toxin. So vinyl chloride as a building block for polyvinyl chloride, this is the stuff that's in everything, right? Children's toys, shower curtains, you heard of PVC piping. So this is a big concern. And the EPA right now is proposing designating vinyl chloride as a high priority chemical, which I think is fantastic. It's taken only about 80 years since it's been declared cancerous. So this is something else that's just came out in the news. So you're probably wondering, right? We've talked about the toxins and how dangerous they are. You're probably wondering what's in my body. So there are a couple of different tests. ANJEC doesn't endorse any specific products or services, but I wanted to share a couple of them. One is a website called Million Marker, and what they do is it's a urine-based test kit. You can just do it from home, and they're going to test for the common toxins that are associated with plastic, from BPA, BPS, PBF, phthalates, parabens, and oxybenzone. And they'll give you some ideas on how to reduce your toxic load. Oh, I should mention that Adam very kindly is dropping some links in the chat as I'm talking. The other one, it's an app and a website, and it's based from the seminal work of Rachel Carson. And Rachel Carson wrote the book Silent Spring, which is really one of the most influential environmental books. It led to the establishment of the EPA and in the first Earth Day celebration in 1970. So this is an app, which I've downloaded on my phone, very easy to do. And as you know, not everything is in the database yet, but you can scan the barcode on a product and check it out and see if it's in the database and what's in it. So these are just examples of a couple of products, but there's more to come and there are more out there. So waste by the numbers, this information was pretty shocking to me. So New Jerseyans dispose 3.7 pounds of solid waste and 2.2 pounds of recycling per person per day. And this number keeps going up. It's not going down. So it's really critical that we work on waste reduction. And nearly 1 trillion disposable food service products are used each day, each year in the US. And there's about 20 billion pieces of litter from disposable food service packaging. And the weight of all disposable use is nearly 9 million tons, or about the weight of 25 Empire State Buildings. So that's pretty bonkers. And this data comes from Upstream, and Upstream is a national user, a national leader in reuse. So I encourage you to check out their website. So I've been giving you a lot of negative information, and I want to switch gears here and talk about some positive news, because that's where we have to focus. Absolutely. And I'm very excited that this just came out just last month in July, that there's a creation of the Interagency Policy Committee on Plastic Pollution and Circular Economy. This is coming from the Biden-Harris administration, and they're very focused on reducing plastic pollution. And they created a federal plan to phase out federal procurement of single-use plastics from food service operations, events, and packaging by 2027, and from all federal operations by 2035. So this is really exciting. And that's, I'm hoping, will spur us here in New Jersey to do the same, at least at the state level, and for all the state-owned facilities, hospitals and schools and prisons, and local governments. So there's no reason we can't do this here in New Jersey as well. And I think that's very inspiring. Here's some more inspiring information. As shared, we did pass the most comprehensive plastic pollution reduction law in the country, and we have been recognized for our efforts. So Environment America said that New Jersey has the most effective ban on single-use plastics. So yes, and this news just came out in January 2024. So year one, about 8.4 billion single-use plastic bags and 110 million single-use paper bags were removed from the waste stream. Year two, we're looking at approximately 16 billion plastic bags and 220 million paper bags. So that's really impressive. Right after the ban went into effect, Clean Ocean Action does their as an annual beach sweep, and they collect data, and this data is really important because it's shown us that since 2007, it's the first time plastics bags were not included in the beach sweep Dirty Dozen list. So that is extremely promising. And I took a peek at the 2023 beach sweep data, and this trend of having less plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam, that's consistent, and that's super exciting. So Clean Ocean Action just does beach data collection, litter data for beaches. There's so much more data to be collected throughout New Jersey, right? Because we have a lot of waterfronts. There's inland sweeps there. I live in the mountains and I do litter cleanups up here. So those are street litter cleanups. All of this is really important to get this information, because strong data and quality data, that's what drives and keeps us motivated. And it helps produce strong policies as well. So this is very exciting. All right. So as we talked about, because of so much consumption here in New Jersey, it's just not enough. It's important to recycle, absolutely, but we have to continue to reduce. So check out who's in your network to help you get the message out. Environmental commissions, green teams, scouts, schools, faith-based groups. There's so many different organizations. And use your New Jersey Clean Communities grant funding to do litter cleanups and to build hydration stations in public parks. New Jersey Clean Communities has a litter survey and data form. And this is what I was referring to about the importance of collecting data. So you go ahead and fill that out when you do litter cleanups. And then that goes back to the state through Litter Free NJ. and that information is shared so that folks, the DEP and the Plastics Advisory Council, we can take a look and see how else New Jersey can work on reducing plastic pollution. How about zero waste events? Here's another great idea. So this is about minimizing waste again. And before you do an event, make sure that you check vendor contracts, excuse me, and don't sell single-use water bottles. Encourage folks to bring some reusables, using a deposit system for reusable cups. Asbury Park, they do an annual festival called See Here Now Music Festival, which sounds like a lot of fun. And they have this reusable cup deposit system for beer and other drinks. So it's really simple. You just pick up a cup, and then you could keep the cup or return the cup and get a deposit back. So which is fantastic. So if it's possible, get somebody out there to manage the food waste and have clearly designated recycling, trash, and food waste sorting. Training staff is also really important. And for those of you that are with Sustainable Jersey, this is a waste action item that's been proposed. What else? I am super excited for this next opportunity to reduce waste, which is called Skip the Stuff. How many folks here order takeaway? I know I do. But how many folks are frustrated when they order takeaway and they give you so much extra stuff that you just don't need, right? Do you really need 20 packets of ketchup, all those utensils? I know I get frustrated when I specifically ask and say, don't give me anything, yet they still throw something in the bag. So Skip the Stuff. It's an ordinance, right? As like with everything else, first it starts with education. So it's a win, 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 win. That's what we like to say, a quadruple win. It's for businesses, it saves on money, labor costs, and inventory. Customers saves on trash and clutter. And obviously it's really good for reducing waste. And this is also proposed for future Sustainable Jersey points. So it's super exciting. We have over, I think maybe close to like 15 towns that have already passed ordinances. Maplewood, Red Bank, Hoboken, Stone Harbor, let's see, Cranford, just to name a few. And it's been a real big win. So I have spoken to folks in Westfield as well. So I've spoken to folks that live in Westfield and in Red Bank and Hoboken, and the businesses have no problems with this. It's about educating the community, the business community, and training the staff so that when you do a takeaway order, you have to opt in for utensils. So ANJEC has a model ordinance, and there's a Beyond Plastics has a whole toolkit called Skip the Stuff. And we're very fortunate here in New Jersey. There has been a Beyond Plastics New Jersey group that started just in January. I encourage you to follow them on Instagram. They have a ton of information. And Clean Water Action also has information under their program called Rethink Disposable. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Skip the Stuff. And there's also a pending bill at the state level. So we're hoping that gets passed. And please look into that. So we are just in the start of August, and July was Plastic-Free July. And I'm curious how many people took the Plastics-Free July challenge. I hope many of you did. So for those of you who don't know what it is what it sounds like. Can you do some changes, or even like I read this New York Times article where the reporter tried to go plastic-free, 100% plastic-free for an entire week, and how that exercise went. It was a really great New York Times article. And it was challenging, as you can imagine, because we wake up and even there's plastic in our toothbrushes and in our clothes, and it just goes from there, right? So it's very difficult to live plastic free. So this is a great challenge, and it started in Australia many years ago, and it's gone global. And even though it's not July anymore, feel free to go on their website because they give you a lot of ideas on how to go plastic free. And it is daunting because it isn't everything, but just make a few changes. So they have examples for a pledge, from switching out from to shampoo bars, or using your reusables for takeaway, those things. But there is a lot of education here, and I'll give you a perfect example. The other day, I took my reusable coffee cup to my local bagel shop, and I said, please fill this up. And I knew it was about 12 ounces. So I said, all right, it's a small. And the woman looked at me and she said, okay, took my cup, then took a fresh cup, poured the coffee into there, and then took that paper cup, put it into my reusable cup, and then threw the cup away. Like, that's the point of this, a reusable. Sorry, while I take a sip. So that's really frustrating. So there's a lot of education that we need to do to get people comfortable with reusables. So what else can you do? Sorry about that. Vote with your wallet. I can't stress this enough because businesses do listen. And one of the reasons why there's been such a tremendous outpouring of interest and motivation is because we're out there telling businesses, hey, we're not interested in this much plastic. I go to Trader Joe's, and I've been going to Trader Joe's for a long time. And I remember when they first came out, they had a lot of things that were outside of plastic. And it was just like loose produce and such. But now I notice it isn't plastic, which is frustrating. And if you, so I encourage you to, talk to the management there and get the information out there and say, I would like things to go back where, we don't need orange slices in plastic. That's, oranges or bananas, or cucumber, that's just not really helpful. So we all spend a lot of money, and if you take the time and have conversations with your family and your friends, and also in your workplaces, well, we spend many hours at work, and if you can, engage with your workplaces on waste reduction and recycling, that's going to be a huge help as well. So now we're a couple of years out of from the plastic pollution reduction law, and I've been seeing a few plastic bags back out, and that's concerning me. So if you see bags, please contact DEP at 1-877-WARN-DEP, or go on the website, Get Past Plastic, and there's a list of resources that at the county level that you can connect with. But get that message out that the law is absolutely working, and we're going to, keep working at the local level and the state level and the federal level to help reduce plastic pollution. And I think that's what I got. Hopefully I didn't run over time.
That's great. No, thank you, Dini, so much for the great presentation. And to all the folks that are listening in, you can put your questions in the Q&A. It's a little box on the bottom. A number of folks have done that. In fact, there was one individual who talked a little bit about the thicker plastic bag. So we'll get to that in the Q&A. But we have one more speaker, an amazing partner, Brooke Helmick, who is the director of the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance in the role of policy director. In this role, she works to further educate the public, works on advocacy, and helps to identify and advance policies that prioritize justice and equity for New Jersey's low-income communities and communities of color. She currently serves as a member of Governor Murphy's Plastics Advisory Council, as well as the chair of the council's Legislation and Policy Committee. She frequently works with partners across the state and nation, including engaging in cross-collaboration with the Equitable and Just National Climate Platform, the Climate Justice Alliance, and Moving Forward Network. Brooke earned a Bachelor of Arts from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, as we know it, and her research focused on disproportionate impacts of climate change and climate-related risks on women of color, particularly those in the global South. She went on to earn her master's in human rights from Columbia University Institute, and it's great to have you, and the floor is yours, Brooke.
Thank you so much. Let me just go ahead and share my screen so I can share my presentation with you all.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Awesome. So thank you again so much. Good evening, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here with you all. My name is Brooke Helmick, and as mentioned, I serve as the Director of Policy with the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance. And my thanks to Ed and the whole LCV team for convening us all for this really important conversation, and to Nandini for starting us off. So NJEJA is a 22-year-old alliance of New Jersey organizations and individuals. We're the first and the only statewide org exclusively dedicated to environmental justice, and we're the only statewide environmental organization with a membership, board, and staff that is predominantly people of color. NJEJA began after our founders and our early leaders gathered at the second National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. New Jersey EJ organizers and advocates established the statewide EJ group was needed to address the collective issues of environmental racism that affected and continue to affect our communities in New Jersey. So thus, NJEJA was founded in 2002 to serve as the vital central coordinating entity for EJ struggles and to raise awareness about environmental racism and economic inequities. So our work is to identify, prevent, reduce, and/or eliminate environmental injustices that exist in communities of color and low-income communities. NJEJA supports community efforts to remediate and rebuild impacted neighborhoods, to use the community's vision of improvement through education, advocacy, the review and promulgation of public policies, of training, organizing, technical assistance. And as a statewide org, our work covers a number of areas, including clean energy production, emissions reductions and local air quality work, community engagement, and waste justice. But with regards to our waste justice and waste reduction efforts, a lot of this work examines how infrastructure is placed and how it's utilized in connection with EJ communities. So a significant portion of this work includes education and understanding to ensure that communities understand what's around them and how this affects them on a day-to-day. So we've hosted, for instance, our waste justice assemblies. Our theme last year was where does it all come from and where does it all go? And we covered topics including plastic pollution, recycling, fast fashion, community-focused waste reduction strategies. Our team has focused work on publishing fact sheets, sharing research papers from our partners such as allies at the Ironbound Community Corporation and Earth Justice, publish opinion pieces to encourage conversation and collaboration about imagining a plastic-free future. We've also done work opposing false solutions such as chemical recycling and incineration. And as mentioned, I currently represent NJEJA as a member of the Governor's Plastic Advisory Council. So when we talk about waste and the problem of plastics, we can't just talk about bottles and bags themselves. We also have to talk about the infrastructure, because this illuminates why waste is an EJ issue. As you can see from the map, EJ communities in New Jersey are inundated with industry, and this greatly impacts a community through a multitude of ways. The industry placement takes up land, they consume energy, they emit greenhouse gases, and they emit greenhouse gas co-pollutants. A second layer to this is that each of these individual facilities together have a cumulative impact on the community. The aggregated emissions greatly impact the local air pollution and the local air quality that that community is breathing in every day. For EJ communities, the problem of plastics is not just about climate change, but about the toxic air pollutants emitted by incineration and waste management facilities that leads to a number of negative health outcomes. And all of this speaks nothing to the psychological effect of living next to these polluting industries, of working near them, of raising children near them. So when we reframe plastics to think about the full life cycle productions, a bigger picture emerges. Plastic production is intrinsically connected to fossil fuel industries, and at each stage of production, consumption, and waste, EJ communities are disproportionately impacted. And all of this is assuming that the waste management system is functioning quote unquote normally. So what you're looking at here is an example of what happens when the waste management system runs into issues and how these repercussions exacerbate existing risk to the surrounding community. The image is from April 2020 when Covanta, now rebranded as ReWorld, the incinerator in the Ironbound community of Newark, burned waste from the Troy Corporation, a chemical company with a facility in Newark whose products contain iodine. The purple smoke happens when iodine is improperly burned in the incinerator. But even when the incinerator is running normally, there are severe impacts on local air quality. The Covanta incinerator is one of the largest single source of NOx pollutions in Essex County. Exposure to NOx leads to a number of negative health outcomes, as I mentioned, including respiratory illness, cardiovascular disease, asthma, increased risk of birth defects, and even death. And this doesn't just happen in New Jersey. There's a risk of purple plume anywhere that there is an incinerator. So you see it in Portland, in East Liverpool, in the Conway Township. So with the EJ context in mind, we can see that the problem of plastics is fundamentally a fossil fuel and a producer issue. The issues plaguing our communities, toxic air quality, disproportionate health impacts, siting of industry, plastic pollution, among others, all connect back to a root cause, a reliance on fossil fuels and overproduction. So then the solution becomes pretty clear. If the issue lies in production and the life cycle of the product, then the solution must start with the producer. Our policy aim should be to hold producers accountable and decrease our reliance on fossil fuels, and the framework should be about reducing pollution, both the physical waste and the associated air emissions and energy consumption. Our solutions must be worker-focused, and they must be low-income focused, because we can't roll out solutions that continue to place EJ communities, host communities, and workers in a position of precarity. If we are to have a just transition, and achieving waste justice being a part of that, then the solutions must be equitable and benefit the communities already the most at risk. So I've talked a lot about the bad, but what does that look like? So this can be put under the idea of an extended producer responsibility. So what you're looking at here is a flow chart from Beyond Plastics, who has done significant work to support EPR across the country and in New Jersey. And there's a lot of forms of EPR legislation, which can be helpful in giving us a myriad of tools to address the problems of our communities and the unique situations that we face at the state, community, and area. So some examples of effective EPR can include legislative standards to implement mandatory packaging reduction over a set period of time. For example, 50% reduction over a 10-year period. That can be done through elimination or switching to a reuse refill system. We apply this policy to all sectors, from residential and commercial. EPR can include achieving a high recycling rate for the packaging which cannot or has not been eliminated. That can be implementing a fee on packaging companies to reimburse consumers and local governments for the financial impacts of recycling. It can be scaling out strong oversight and accountability and increasing transparency in the waste management process. And it can be closing loopholes in existing and future compliance structures. Other policy solutions can include standing with us and opposing false solutions, such as chemical recycling, which I'll speak to more in a moment. It can also be advocating for the decommissioning of incinerators, as I talked about, have drastic effects on the local air pollution. It can also be working to build local policy solutions, like Skip the Stuff, as Nandini went through, such as increasing the accessibility and scale of composting or working on those local ordinance. Or a local reframe can also include education, which focuses on a mindset shift, pivoting us from a consumption economy to a regenerative economy, where everything has a long-term use and a value, and nothing goes to waste or is designed to be thrown out. In addition to these proactive policy interventions, we should stand together in opposing solutions which could pose additional harm to our community. So some examples can include chemical recycling. So chemical recycling really boils down to two categories, which is plastic to fuel or plastic to chemical components. Under international standards, plastic fuel to plastic waste doesn't count as recycling. So chemical recycling is not a solution to waste management, nor is it a sustainable practice. And in some cases can be really incredibly dangerous. There's risks of fire, more air pollution, gas and chemical leaks, costly cleanups. In addition to these risks in the surrounding community and the workers operating these facilities, chemical recycling is a really expensive process, and it hasn't been proven to work all that well. By our last count, there were 11 constructed facilities in the United States, but most aren't operating at full capacity. But even if they were operating at full capacity, that's only about 1.3% of plastic waste. So they're expensive, they're risky, and they don't address the root cause. In addition to the state and the federal policy solutions, there's some practical tactics at the individual level that you can take, which can include listening to EJ communities, such as incinerator communities like those in the Ironbound who have been vocal in opposing the Newark incinerator. This means showing up to support their work, signing their petitions, showing up as allies in community meetings and events. It can look like supporting initiatives led by EJ and grounded in EJ principles, such as speaking with your legislature at all levels of governance to share your thoughts and support for EJ communities and what they've been demanding. What you see on the right is a letter from a coalition of advocates that NJEJA is a part of, calling attention to a bill which promotes chemical recycling and thus poses a significant risk to the residents and the communities in New Jersey. It can also look like submitting public comment, showing up for testimony opportunities, attending public hearings and meetings, calling your legislature, signing on to public comment opportunities when there are. You'll see in the upper left corner is NJEJA's comments to the Department of Treasury that we submitted just this past week on the proposed clean energy tax credits, and urging these departments to ensure that facilities which produce toxic pollutants, such as incinerators, don't qualify for clean energy tax credits. There's so many opportunities to be vocal about these issues at the various levels of governance. And there's certainly a power in organizing together behind a unified message of protecting our EJ communities and committing to solutions that will actually address the plastic pollution problem while still centering waste justice frameworks. So with that, that's all of what I have to share with you all this evening. Thank you again to LCV for organizing. And as an org, we're happy to stay connected with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or want to get involved in more of the environmental justice work we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brooke. You don't get away that easy. We're all coming back for some questions and answers, and some are straightforward and some are a little bit more challenging. So if we can bring Dini back as well. You know, one thing I just want to make clear and just sort of reinforce, plastics are coming from mostly oil. That's an oil derivative, fossil fuels. They can do it from some other things. My background is in chemistry, so there's some other places they can come from, hydrocarbons. So part of our addiction to fossil fuels for energy is also linked to our addiction to plastics. And we really have to work hard to delink them. And I think there's so many examples, and I commend you both for the great work you're doing, the way you're able to break it down for everybody. But also know the forces that we're against are pretty strong. They're well-funded, deep pockets. For example, Brooke mentioned something called chemical recycling. The chemical recycling is really what it should be called, because you're using chemicals to decompose and reconstitute stuff. But that's found a way into the New Jersey legislature as something called advanced recycling. But that just sounds better than normal recycling. It's advanced, right? If you advance a degree or you advance a grade or something that's more advanced, sounds better. It's actually more Neanderthalic. It takes more energy, it's more pollution, and it's more harmful. It's backwards. And I think we just have to be really careful too. And I want to thank everyone who's attending today to help parse through some of the opposition that we're up against for a safer, cleaner environment, for a healthier environment for our families and our children. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, reducing the health impacts of the plastics in our environment. So I got a couple questions here. One of them, you know, has to be just like all of us in recycling. So every county in New Jersey, recycling is a little bit different. So 21 counties, 21 systems. I remember I was at Rutgers. I think Dini, you were at Rutgers too, right? I remember that, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
You know, like we were across 2 counties, and campuses were in different towns, different zip codes, all these things. but they had to have their own recycling system. But if you went outside Rutgers, then you were in another one. So you had to like, you had 3 or 4 different systems. So one of the common mistakes that people are making when they're recycling that's problematic, can you talk a little bit about what those are? And there's a couple questions in the chat too, like what makes number 5 not recyclable? And what makes something recyclable and something not? So like, what are the common mistakes? So all of us can become warriors in educating our friends and family and the community. And then what makes something recyclable and not recyclable? Because there's this idea that recycling is the panacea. I don't know who wants to take it first. Dini's got her mic off.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and Brooke jump in as well. But so yes, there is a lot of information out there that we can certainly do recycling much better. So the global average is very low. I think it's like 6%, but we are doing much better here in New Jersey than that number, because we have curbside recycling infrastructure, which works really well. And to Ed's point, there's a ton of confusion, but there's movement afoot to try to get some uniform recycling across the state among all the counties. So 1 and 2 and 5 are acceptable in majority of places. And why are those acceptable? Because they're easy to recycle, and it's like anything else, there's a market out there. If there's a market, then we can reuse it. So New Jersey, after the plastic pollution reduction law, we passed a law on oh my gosh, I'm blanking on using plastic, recycled plastic. So it's actually important for us, because what we're doing is taking those 1, 2s, and 5s and repurposing them and putting them back into.
So that Diane had asked that. So I don't know that. I don't know what happens when I click Market Live, but what mistakes do people make? What are people doing wrong when they're recycling?
Sure. The number 1 thing is wish cycling. They wish that a hose, a garden hose can be recycled. The answer is no. So please do look at the county information of what's acceptable in your town and county and go with that. If you are confused, if a pen can be recycled, the answer is no. If you're confused, just don't throw it in there.
Great.
Keep recycling. It's actually really important.
Brooke, any other additions to that? Things you see that are going wrong and the difference in recyclability?
Yeah, I would also think too, not just like thinking about what we can recycle, but thinking about ways we can make swaps. So Dini made a lot of really great points about skip the stuff and these types of things. Like, what are the ways that we can make small alterations, knowing that this problem is a much bigger systemic issue, but we still can make small adjustments in our day-to-day lives that take out that need to put something in a garbage can or a recycling bin in the first place.
Awesome. And yeah, not use it together. So I guess this one, let me see here. I'm going to go to Callie asks the question. How do we get large corporations to absorb a greater or a percentage of the plastics that they produce? Sort of that producer responsibility, either in the cost or the cleanup. And I know this comes into like thin films, like, Ziploc bags or saran wrap. And this sort of came up in one of the presentations. There was a specific question.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about EPR. I think legislation is a really strong tool, and it's a strong tactic too. I think the frustration that can kind of come up when we talk about legislative or policy solutions is that legislation is slow moving. So we have tools and tactics in our tool belt that can get us there in quick pace. That's, just not using the plastic in the first place. And then there's those longer scale, longer term tactics like EPR, like getting producers to be held responsible for what they're doing. When you order something from a corporation and it gets delivered, like Amazon, and it gets delivered to your house and it's this huge box and this really tiny object, an EPR law could make sure that the box you're getting is proportional to the item that you're getting. So there's less actually being sent to you. There's less use involved. And legislation is a really strong way to get us there. I will say the counterpart to that is that making sure we have good accountability and enforcement mechanisms, and that also requires transparency, because a law is only as good as the enforcement that's coming along with it. So we have to have both sides of that coin. We have to have the rule and making sure that we're holding those corporations accountable through the law. And then that second part of actually following through, are they following the law, and making sure that we have strong enforcement mechanism, fines, fees, those types of things to make sure that the law is effective and it's being utilized.
That's exactly right. And I think it's one of the challenges that we see every step of the way with all the bright ideas. So there's a couple questions in the chat we're not going to get to because it's, Dini covered, if you see a violation of the law on plastic reduction for single uses, there is a way to report it, and you should do that because I often talk to folks in enforcement that we're not hearing from anyone that they're giving out so many straws. Came up a number of times in the questions. Why do people give out straws without, you're supposed, the way the law works is you get a straw if you request a straw. That doesn't mean when you go to Dunkin' Donuts, no offense to Dunkin' Donuts, they put the straw on top for you and hand it to you. That's not a request, right? And if you see that, take a moment to report it. Some folks just don't know. In the early days, the first couple of months, there's a lot of pushback. People are giving you extra straws just to say, hey, the government shouldn't tell me whether I should have a straw or not. That's actually not what we're trying to do. A glass works really well to drink out of. A glass of water at a restaurant is the same as a glass of water with a straw. And every single glass we have doesn't need to have a straw in it. And requests for folks that need it makes sense. So, sort of stick with that. So that covered that as well. All right, now this one I'm not so sure about. So I think they're referring, so the question comes from Callie. She says, how do we ban those single shot alcohol plastic bottles at the liquor stores? And I wondered, I can't talk to her right now because we're just doing this in a different format, if it were okay if it were in glass. So I'm going to add that to it too. Not that people should be drinking shots on their way home, but is there something to this to just switch back to the old days of our parents and grandparents?
Yeah. A couple of things. Brooke touched on EPR. That's definitely a way to go. That's going to be really critical on the packaging. The second is litter data. So the more data we have out there, and the more I know in my litter collections, I'm seeing a lot more of those bottles, those small nip bottles. Down there, I mark it. And the idea is for all of this to bubble up to the state level, and hopefully we can work on some policy to ban those.
Well, would you be okay if they were glass? Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. I don't know. We would have to talk to a recycling professional. I think my concern with those bottles is that they're small, and I'm not sure how that's being captured with the current recycling technology we have. So
okay. That would be the question. Is a small, one-shot bottle on a plane recyclable unto itself, or is that add another layer? Of course, the goal here is to continue the sustainability cycle and make it something that's usable without toxic pollution. Okay.
Adds a little complexity.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. So now we've all seen this, and this comes from Ramiro. Thicker plastic bags seem to be cropping up in lots of places. So I really commend all of you working together to get the strongest, single-use plastics law in the country passed. Great work. We have more work to do. There's a couple questions too in the quick Q&A about how do we strengthen it. But one thing we've been seeing is the straws kind of not necessarily always being followed, but these thicker bags, and I'll pick out a company, ShopRite, which I used to work at. I'm a big ShopRite fan. That's my first job, and I was a checker, and I could tell you all the PLU codes for the different items in the what they call that area there. I can't think of vegetables and stuff. Produce, thank you. All the produce codes. But when you went through, they didn't have any bags, and now they have these like white bags, and they're like thicker, they're more plastic than the thin ones. And they say they're reusable, but they're really not. I mean, they're crappy, they're gonna fall apart. So we've been seeing those crop up. What's kind of the thinking around them? I know originally when we passed the law, we worked very careful to have stitched handles. And somewhere along the way, they've taken this to mean electrically stitched, which just means melted plastic handles. Because the idea being that you can't stitch a handle unless it's a certain ability to be reusable, and there's a certain number of times. I tend to try to use the cloth ones. So this is a question that came up from Ramiro.
Sure. So that's a really good question. A couple of things, the purpose really of the law is to create awareness about the amount of plastic. And the straws upon request, the reason why we couldn't ban straws outright is for folks with disabilities. So to be ADA compliant, that's why it's straws upon request. With the reusable bags, like the ones that are thin with the ultrasonic, unfortunately, as per the law, they are acceptable. But what's happening on the back end, and this has been one of the unintended consequences, and I saw this come up in the question as well, is a lot of shopping from home. And so those bags are being used more and more. Couple of things here, those reusable bags, they can be donated to a local food bank, and I'm going to drop that in the chat. And so that's something that's going on. There are stores like ShopRite actually that are taking those bags back, which is a good thing. And if you are ordering from home, you can write under the instructions that you just want it delivered and left in a box at your house. And you can coordinate that with your Instacart delivery or ShopRite at home delivery. So there are other options that are brewing. But again, you have to advocate and push for that with the business.
Did you want anything on that one?
Yeah, I think I would just add kind of more of a step back. Dini did a great job of talking about what could be done to fix it. When we're thinking about legislation, though, everything's going to have holes, and so this is an iterative process. So that's really where the role of a community speaking up and saying what's going wrong, what's going right, and telling your legislature, like we talked about, reporting, doing all these types of things, communication and education can make sure that we're shaping new policy developments to better address the emerging issues. Because as we fix one thing, we might see, something slightly different is coming up and causing a slightly different issue. And so we really all need to be in communication and conversation about how we're experiencing these laws, so we can then shape further policy adjustments to better suit the issues of the community.
And one thing we're also trying to balance is when we open up a law to modify it, because there's a lot of folks, can we tweak it? Can we make it better? For example, around the home delivery, there was a big uproar. Oh, so many bags are piling up in people's houses. There was nothing in the law that said they couldn't reuse those bags. Take them, drop it off. Then the next time when they drop it off, they pick up a whole bunch or use a different container, like a crate or anything else. But the I guess grocery stores created this crisis unto themselves and said, oh, we're not touching the bags anymore, or whatever else it was. And through time, we worked out. But as soon as you open up a law, everybody tries to get in there. And parts that you're straightening or tightening up, also they look to loosen parts. And so it's always a little bit of a balancing act as we try to perfect and hone legislation to know the right time to make sure it actually is being strengthened and not some smoke and mirrors game where it actually ends up being weaker in the end. So that's something we're always looking at, all of us as advocates, but keep pushing us too for what those holes are so we can look at other ways to modify it or make it better. This one is a sort of—
Can I just jump in? That is such a great point. I just want to say during the pandemic, and we just started with the law. So yes, there were a lot of those reusable bags that went out, but now everybody's got them. So we're seeing less usage of those bags and at home deliveries. That number actually has dropped in the last year.
That's
so
good.
You're seeing less of those.
But I mean, you don't see them in the trees, you don't see them in the streams, you don't see them in our oceans and our lakes. I mean, it is just a totally different experience in our state. When I go other places where they don't have that, you see what it looked like here. It was like decorating your whole community with plastics. So, and this might be the last question we'll have time to get to. Anne Marie asked, she just picked up some clothing at the dry cleaner. It was covered in plastic. What do we do with the plastic wrapper? Can the dry cleaner use something else besides that plastic bag? This is that sort of thin film question.
Two things. Yes, they can. They can use a reusable garment bag, and you can have a conversation with your dry cleaner about that. And the second thing is, there are a lot of stores take back that film. So the dry cleaning bag, bread bags, if you can't reuse your bread bags for picking up litter, pet waste, but yeah, look around, the overwrap on, paper towels, all of that is called plastic film. And that can be taken back. Target, Kohl's, ShopRite's, Acme, all of these stores take plastic film back.
And so just map out where that is in your community, and that's an extra step. It's a little harder, right? You can't just put it with your regular recycling, at least right now.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
something for all of us that are studious, we definitely can keep a monitor on. There was another question too, Brooke, for you, and I know this is being recorded, and I don't know if it's simple, but you shared a list of ways folks can help, how allies can help. We want to make sure we share that again. So I'll just make a note when we send the email out to the attendees, folks who registered who weren't able to attend, if we can please list all the organizations, ways folks can sign up for our email lists, sign up to get more information, follow us on social media. That would be really helpful. This has been a great conversation. I'm sure we could keep going. There are more questions. We didn't get to everyone. There are great and thoughtful questions. Some also very helpful and nice comments. Alice said no question, but wanted to say that she loved the meeting, wonderfully informative. She belongs to 2 green teams, and she was doing everything she can to help save the planet. And there was one special love note for Brooke, the comment that we all need to move away from being a consumer society economy to a regenerative one. So know that not only are you providing valuable information, you're also helping to inspire. And we have our work cut out for us, as I mentioned. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended for being here. We're going to drop some links into the chat if you want to get involved with New Jersey LCV. We have our Facebook, our website, our Instagram, our Twitter. If you want to make a donation to any of our organizations, we'll follow that up in an email as well. We couldn't do that without the support of everybody, and we welcome your investment. I'm really grateful for everyone joining. Stay connected, and if there's anything else we can do, please stay in touch with us, and just want to wish you to have a great evening. Try to stay not flooded with these intense storms that we've been having, and hopefully will dry out over the weekend. So thanks again so much.
Thank you all so much for joining tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Ed and Isabel, and all the folks behind the scene. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. It's really great to be here. Thank you.